every time I start a project, you ask anyone in my team, for me it's forget about the money bit first and the finances. Just focus on what do we want to create. We lose that, we're going to lose sort of the heart and soul of what restaurants are. Do you know what? I just didn't enjoy the environment. I just found it a very weird, superficial environment.
Don't be embarrassed. Some people think they're too cool for school and that they don't want to start at the bottom.
And there was a friend of mine, we were sat around the table with a few of us, and someone said, what happens if everything goes to zero? And then you're looking going, well, how long is the cash going to last for? 40% of our workforce disappeared overnight.
Wow.
And there's one more thing. Too many of them, and I think they're sort of brainwashed by Dragon's Den and stuff. Too many entrepreneurs think they have to invent something.
Where's that pistachio cake made? I love it. It's addictive.
Yeah. Right.
It's Moorish. Once you have one slice, you can't stop.
Amazing.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nabil from BricksToRiches. Today on the podcast, I have a very special guest, Marcello Di Stefano from San Carlo Group. Marcello, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nabil.
Marcello, I'd like to ask you one question. You're the biggest success story in the restaurant industry in the UK. You've got a number of restaurants, especially in Cheshire, Hale. San Carlo is my favourite restaurant. I understand your father started it in 1994, was it?
92.
92. And how many restaurants do you have across the world right now, across the globe?
So we've got... By the way, thanks for saying the most successful in the UK. I'm not sure we could take that flag yet. I think there are some.
For me, it's because you're a homegrown brand from Manchester.
From Manchester, we've gone quite far with it. So father started it in 92 in Birmingham.
Yes.
That was the first San Carlo. And I remember...
Is that branch still there? I think I've been to that. Yeah, I've been to that one. Yeah, when I went to Edgbaston Cricket Ground, I went there for dinner. I went there for dinner.
So that was his first. It wasn't his first entry into restaurants. He was a partner in a restaurant with a group of people that owned, one of them being my godfather, a group of people that owned Coco's and Cockatoos in Manchester back in the day, and they were the kind of celeb haunts of the 80s and 90s. I think Coco's was on Fountain Street, opposite the old Lewis's, and then Cockatoos was down on the Arches. I've forgotten what it's called now. But I remember Pavarotti had been there and everything. And
I can see the photos when you walk into San Carlo. You always see the photos up on the wall.
Well, I got that idea from those restaurants when I was growing up, the original Coco's and Cockatoos. Because I remember going to Coco's as a kid, and in the 90s, or even maybe like 80s, and seeing a picture of John Bon Jovi on the wall with a note on it, and it was amazing. And for me, that was like, wow, Bon Jovi's been here. And when my father, originally when he started growing the San Carlo restaurants, he didn't have the pictures on the walls of celebrities. And I said to him, why don't we do like you used to do in Coco's? And he was like, no, it's old fashioned. And we did it, and actually people love it, and especially kids, especially younger people, they love it to feel that kind of association. The only problem is some people think, oh, we're all about celebrities. We're not. It's just that it adds a bit of fun and a bit of sparkle, and I don't know, people kind of enjoy that, to know that they've, with some of their sporting idols or people they look up to, they're eating in the same place that they've been to, and I think they feel closer to whoever that person is, and I think
they can relate to that person. Can't they?
And it brings a bit of magic to it. So we've always got the haters that are always like, oh, you only look after celebrities. Well, celebrities are probably 0.000% of the customers we serve.
So you look after normal people. I'm a normal person. You look after me.
You're not quite that normal, are you?
No, but whenever I message you always get me a booking. A prime example, New Year's Eve, I couldn't get a booking of any restaurant. I messaged you, I need a booking. You got me Signor Sassy.
Tell people that. And that's the thing. When my father set up the business, so when he first opened San Carlo in Birmingham in 92, he had pizza, he had pasta on the menus. And pizza can be seen as, in Italy, you go, oh, it's a pizzeria. But we had tablecloths. He wanted to make sure that everybody felt special when they came to his restaurant and that you were good value. So you could come in and spend, back in those days, £10 a head, or you could come in and spend £50 a head. But all the different customers felt right in the same place. And to do that, I think it was quite a special thing to do, and that's why San Carlo became such a big thing, because it was always busy. So you always had people coming through the doors at different levels, different demographics, but there was this vibrancy and there was an atmosphere to the restaurant, which you found rarely in other places, especially in the provinces. So unless you went to London,
yes.
I remember the first time I ever went to Quaglino's in London back in the day, and I remember like going down these steps, and then there was just this restaurant and this atmosphere in front of me, and I found that massively inspirational.
So you created like a theatre effect, haven't you?
Yeah.
People go there for the ambience, for the
People
energy.
always said with San Carlo, it's the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's what really gets them. You can go on a Monday night and a Tuesday night. There's always an atmosphere.
There's always a vibe, isn't
There's
there?
a vibe.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than going to a restaurant on a weeknight and it's quiet and it's depressing. You know, when people go out, you want to feel good, don't you? And I think that's what it's about.
And also, whenever I go to your restaurants, all the staff know me by name, they address me by name. So it's that individual caring factor. They call you by name, they address you, they look after the regulars.
And I think it's something we're losing these days.
Yes.
You know, we're very passionate about that maitre d'. You know, the maitre d', it sounds like an old-fashioned term these days because everything's so process-driven. And the way groups have grown and become big chains, they're so process-driven that they forget about what restaurants are. There's got to be a personality. There has to be a natural warmth to it. You have to feel welcome, especially in our level of where we are in that sort of, we'd say sort of the higher end of casual dining. Because we don't see ourselves as fine dining. That's Michelin style or whatever. But the key is that when you walk in, you feel welcomed, you feel warm, you get to know the customer, you know what they like, you know the tables they like, you know the food that they like. And that's key. And I think if we lose that, we're going to lose sort of the heart and soul of what restaurants are. And
the other good thing, Marcello, your restaurants have the consistency, whether I've been to Birmingham, San Carlo, whether I've been to Signor Sassi in London or Dubai or San Carlo and Hale or Selfridges or Alderley Edge, whatever order in every restaurant, the food's always consistent. Because sometimes you have food that the food taste can change, but yours in each restaurant is very consistent, so that's commendable. How do you achieve that standard?
It's tough. It's hard. It's probably one of the biggest things that we have to work on all the time. We don't have a central kitchen.
You must have a great training. You must have a great training machine, and everything's made fresh.
Yeah, everything's made fresh. We really believe in that. The only thing we do centrally is our ice cream, which we make in Manchester.
Where's that pistachio cake made? I love it. It's addictive.
It's great.
It's Moorish. Once you have one slice, you can't stop.
But everything else is on site, and we believe that because I believe Italian food is so simple that you feel like you're cheating the customer if you're making it off site in the central kitchen. And there are groups out there that are doing it. But we believe fresh ingredients, they're simple. We can train the chefs, we can make sure, and we can employ a good enough caliber of people to make sure that we get it out right. And it's nice that you say it's always consistent. We don't always get it right, and that's part of the compromise because we want to make it fresh on the premises.
As long as you're consistent 90% of the time, that's what
exactly.
matters.
But we do work hard at that, and it definitely is for us probably the hardest thing in the business.
And also, Marcello, you started the business in 2004. You joined the business in 2004.
I finished university and came into it.
What did you do at uni, by the way?
So I did two things. So I originally did fashion design, and I went to Central St. Martin's in London to do it.
Hence the Gucci shirt.
So for those of people that don't know what Central St. Martin's is, it was a very well-known, famous fashion school. And I think during that first year, I just realised, actually, I liked it, but I didn't want to do a career in it. And I probably spent most of my life, which a lot of us sometimes can do. If you've had a successful family or a successful father, you want to sort of go and prove yourself.
Yes. Do it independently.
Do it independently. So even though I had this craving to want to go into the restaurant business, I was pushing away from it. So I was going to say, doing something. I
think you could have got away with being a good Italian designer. There's loads of good Italian designers.
Maybe, but I, do you know what? I just didn't enjoy the environment. I just found it a very weird, superficial environment in fashion. I
love it. I love it working with beautiful women.
I just couldn't see myself having a massive future in it. And so I then went and did a business degree. I went to Bath University, did a business degree. And then when I finished there, I came out of it and just said to my father, look, I want to join the business. And at first he told me not to. He went, no, go and do something else. And he's old school Italian. You know, he either wanted his son to be a doctor, a banker, or a lawyer. And if you weren't one of those three, you've failed. And that's the kind of attitude.
Same as Asians. Asians want the same.
Sure,
they have good family values. They want the
Yeah.
kids to do better than them.
It is, and I think it's just this kind of thing. Those kind of careers were like, they were just like, this has been a success, and to be proud to say my son's a lawyer or a doctor. And so I said, look, I want to come into the business, and he was really against it. He says, you don't. It's going to be hard. It's going to be long hours. You're not going to have a life. And in those days, that was just 4 restaurants. We just opened San Carlo, Manchester. I went, no, I really want to do it. And I had worked in hospitality. I'd worked in Pizza Express for 3-4 years. Worked in Winslow Pizza Express. I used to work at the White House in Prestbury.
The White House.
Do you remember the White House? A very silver, fine dining restaurant. I used to spend hours doing butterballs. And polishing cutlery, but I actually learned quite a lot, and I learned loads from Pizza Express, to be fair. Just to do 5-6 things at the same time, it was quite a good training ground for that. And then I worked for them when I was at university, but because my dad's restaurant was in Birmingham, I couldn't work in the restaurant when I was at uni and stuff. So that was, I learned very straight. So he said, fine, come to Manchester. But I didn't want to be a manager or anything like that. We had people in the business in their 50s and 60s. They'd spent their whole life doing it. I couldn't come in as a cocky 25-year-old, start ordering them around, telling them what to do. And I didn't want that, because I knew I'd get stick and people would go against me. I knew I had to prove myself. So I just went in doing any job. I worked in the restaurant all day, didn't take a break, 7 days a week. I did food running. I worked behind the bar. Any
it's
job
commendable. So you worked away from the bottom, 2005.
Yeah, it was.
To now, 19 years on, you're the managing director.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal.
There was a process, but I knew I had to gain the respect of the people that have been working.
You got the respect of the peers and of your father. Then worked your way up the ladder.
Yeah.
In that 19 years, from 4 restaurants when you joined in 2005, how many restaurants do you have now globally?
25 UK, and we've got 10 international at the moment.
Good.
And those will grow to 15, 16 by the end of the year.
I see that you've got obviously Dubai, you're doing Morocco, you're doing Saudi Arabia.
We've got 4 in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, whereabouts in Saudi?
So we've got 2 in Riyadh, we've got a Signor Sassi and a Cicchetti, and we've got Cicchetti in Jeddah, and we've got Cicchetti in Qaba. I can never pronounce it properly, I can never get that thing in Qaba, which are all doing fantastically well. Probably some of the most successful restaurants in Saudi at the moment.
Oh, right.
So we've got 4 there. We've got a Cicchetti in Bahrain. We are going to be opening Signor Sassi Bahrain later on in the year. We've got Signor Sassi in Qatar. We've got Cicchetti in Qatar. Just opened a new concept called Rosto there. And then we've got 1 in Bangkok. And we've got, where else am I missing? Dubai.
What about Morocco?
So Morocco, we're just in the process of designing at the moment. Actually, my head designer's out in Morocco today. That's in Rabat, and then we're doing Casablanca next year.
What about Marrakesh? That's nice.
That will come eventually, but it's looking more for like the sort of business side, the element of Morocco.
How about Vietnam?
Vietnam is in a private members club that will be opening hopefully by the end of the year. We're just on the second round of designs at the moment. Miami's probably going to be around September.
Marcello, when you develop a restaurant, it's not cheap. It costs millions of pounds to make a restaurant fit out like San Carlo Alder Edge. Yeah. That's my favourite restaurant in England. I love going there. The ambience, the atmosphere, the outdoor area. But when you compare the cost of that to do something like in Morocco or Saudi, the labour's a lot cheaper.
But don't forget, so what we do internationally is franchise at the moment. Now, we might change that model to JVs in the future, but at the moment, it's a franchise model. So we don't have any CapEx at risk. So we're purely taking, we teach them how to do it. We spend a lot of time working with them, developing the brands and stuff, and they pay us for that.
Like a royalty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you choose a location for a restaurant, Marcello, what do you look for in a location? Because I'm in the property business. For me, location's key. Of course, the same for the restaurant business. Location must be key to get the clientele, get the customers.
It is for majority of them. So, and it depends which country you're in. So UK, pretty much our tick boxes are highly visual. Make sure you can see into the restaurant. Good windows. make sure there's a good footfall of people. You know,
like the London one I've been to, Signor Sassi, that's huge footfall right next to Harrods.
Yeah, loads.
They've got Marouche there, they've got Zuma there.
Yeah, it's everything.
Especially the summer, it's full of all tourists.
Yeah. And that's the thing with London, it's great. You know, in London we're in Covent Garden, we're in St Christopher's Place near Selfridges as well, all high footfall areas. If you stick to that, you know even your minimum amount is going to be so much per week, and the rest of it is a bonus. So you know your rent's paid for and all that stuff. Some of the few times we've gone away from that, it's taken us longer to build that business. So
because then it becomes a destination.
It does. And some brands can work off destination. Some brands can just, you know, they can do obscure places. But for us, we know that we feel safe by sticking to that. Now, slightly different sometimes in other countries. So you can be a bit more destination. You don't necessarily have to have a high footfall. You just got to be in the right area. So there are different nuances depending on where you are.
Who chooses the location? You do, or do you have a team of sourcing agents?
So anything in the UK, and even abroad, it has to be signed off by me.
Good.
One of the biggest problems you see in restaurant groups is as they get bigger, sometimes that founders or heads of it start leaving it up to others. And you know, we see it from some London brands coming up to Manchester, and you think, why the hell are they taking that site? And it's because they sometimes listen to agents too much.
They delegate.
Agents, oh, it's the best site in Manchester. And actually, sometimes just look at it. What other restaurants are around you?
That's why you're successful. You've got your finger on the pulse. You're watching everything. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, and we're not going to get them all right, but so far out of the 25, I think probably only a couple that...
Do you physically go and visit the site?
Yeah.
Every single one?
Yeah. And
from Morocco to Vietnam to Saudi, you go yourself?
Yep. Got to go and see all the sites.
That's good.
Ideally, want to get to all of them, see it, feel it, see if it definitely feels right.
Good. And also, when you buy these sites, do you ever go and acquire the restaurant building? Like, I'm in the property business, so if I was going to do a restaurant, I'd go and buy the building, because that's what I understand. I've been in property business for 30 years. Yeah. So then I'll put a restaurant in there, because I think heads I win. The restaurant, if that fails, at least I've got the property to fall back. So why do you not buy the buildings? So
majority, you'll probably find very few restaurateurs have bought the buildings, very few groups as well, because as you grow in the business, the capex is so high on opening the restaurant. There isn't any capex left for buying the buildings. So if you end up buying the buildings in the beginning, you're going to have much slower growth. The flip side now is, okay, we're a much bigger business, so actually we could use the money to buy buildings. The problem is most of the sites we want now, except maybe a few provincial cities, if it's in London, for example, we can't, because most of them are owned by larger institutions. So you're not going to be able to buy them anyway. What about like in Cheshire, Birmingham? And that's different. So we do own one. We own Fumo in Birmingham. Because you could buy the rest building. Let's say if you bought a building for £2 million, spent £4 million refurbishing it, put your brand in there on a 25-year lease, and after a couple of years sell the business, you could make a good profit on the property. Double your money. I agree, and it's one of those. Double your money, making money on property and in restauranting. Yeah, it's very, it's very hard in the restaurant industry to do it in the beginning. It's got to be something when you're producing a lot more cash later on, to be able to then purchase the building. You're still a young man. Maybe when you get older, you can become a property expert. I'll help you. It's got to be easier, hasn't it? Managing restaurants. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's the ideal, and the ideal would be, is great for that. But at the moment, we're still wanting to open restaurants. Okay, so any young and up-and-coming entrepreneurs, what would you advise them, whether you're in the restaurant business or the property business, any career, what tips would you give them? Okay, what tips? I think one of the first and foremost is never stop learning. Yeah, have an open mind, Always have an open mind, always be learning, always be taking information from as many places as possible and advice. And trust your own instincts. I think instinct, sometimes we don't do it enough. And I think listen to your gut, you mean? Listen to your gut. I think half time, if something's never gone right, I think you're probably the same. You could look back and say, I should have trusted my gut. Yeah, exactly. I didn't. So I think, but definitely they never stop learning. I think anybody I've met that ever thinks they've stopped learning or they don't need to know anymore, I don't know. I don't trust that, because I think, things are changing all the time. Yeah.
And also, the one thing you proved that you worked your way from the bottom to the top. There should be no embarrassment in humility of labour. So, like when I bought houses, when I started my career off in '95, I used to buy small properties and I used to rip them out myself. Now, obviously, I've got a construction team, but you started your way in the kitchen where you made your way up to the top. So, don't be embarrassed. Some people think they're too cool for school and that they don't want to start at the bottom.
I agree.
Yeah.
And you've got to put... I think the problem, the world we live in today, and I think from people looking at social media too much, they're looking at the 1% of people that have been very successful. So everybody's looking for a quick win.
Yes.
And the other thing I never trust is when somebody comes to me and saying, I've got this idea to do this, I'm going to do this, this and this, and I'll exit in 5 years and I've made this. And I'm thinking, do you know, you've got to love and enjoy what you're doing. And if you do, you'll be good at it.
Yes.
And you're more likely to be successful. But if you're designing something to think where you're going to be in and out within a short period of time, that for me, I think there's probably going to be 99.9% of failures. You've got
if you don't enjoy it, it becomes a chore. It becomes a chore.
Yeah. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. You've got to be passionate. You've got to be relentless with it. And I think you've got to have attention to detail.
Yes, I agree with
that.
And
I think if all of those things, you bring them together and you're just relentless with it, it's more than likely going to be a success. Sometimes we do projects, and I do look at the numbers last.
The financials, you mean?
The financials, yeah. Because I can kind of, like now, you can do it with property. You can look at a building. You know what you're going to have to do, how much you have to spend. You know what you'll make of it. And I'll probably do the same with the restaurant. I can look at the size. I'll take about this much and we'll make that. But every time I start a project, you ask anyone in my team, for me, it's forget about the money bit first and the finances. Just focus on what do we want to create. And if you want to create, then the rest will happen. That's happened with All the Edge. The budget on All the Edge was a hell of a lot smaller to begin with. And I just said, you know what, scrap it. What's the ultimate? What can we create? And actually, we went on a bit of a whim and we went, just do it. Okay, just do it. And we did it. And actually, it's paid off. And it's working well.
I'm looking forward to Alderley, by the way, opening up upstairs. When do you think that will open up?
At the moment, we're just pricing it all up at the moment. So it will be at some point this year.
So the point going back to young entrepreneurs, work hard, work smart, be humble, keep learning, have an open mind, and enjoy your job.
Yeah, you've got to.
That's the point for the young entrepreneurs who are watching or listening, to be disciplined and determined.
And the other thing, and there's one more thing. Too many of them, and I think they're sort of brainwashed by Dragon's Den and stuff. Too many entrepreneurs think they have to invent something.
Yeah.
99% of the time, you don't have to invent. You just have to do something better than someone else.
That's what you proved in 19 years.
And I think a lot of people think they've got to invent something. They come to you and go, I found this niche market. Niche is like a word that's thrown around. I found this niche market, and you were going to do this and this, and I've developed a need. There's not many people that have ever managed to create something that we didn't have, that we thought we needed, that we didn't think we needed. So, like, for example, no one thought we needed a Walkman. Did they? And like we all ended up walking around. None of us actually thought at the time, probably, even though we were too young. Actually, we need to walk around listening to music, but it was designed. But too many people think we've got to invent stuff. We don't. My father always said to me, just need to do something better than someone else.
True. More efficiently, more effectively.
And more efficiently, And then you're more likely to create a business that will be successful than you see these people that are constantly inventing their whole lives and, constantly it's failing. Don't need to do that.
And also, Marcello, in your 19-year career in the restaurant industry, you must have seen highs and lows.
Yeah.
What was your lowest point? Was it COVID or something else?
COVID.
What could you say about that? How did that affect your...
I think...
Because in COVID gave a lot of opportunities. In COVID, I bought a lot of property cheap. And then when the COVID finished, the property prices went up. So in loss, there was gain as well. So what did you experience in COVID? Obviously, restaurants were closed. You must have lost a lot of revenue.
I remember
the poor staff were sat at home.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah. But those 2 years must have been tough.
When I got really emotional is when the government announced furlough. Because that week leading up to it, you don't know what to do. Am I going to have to lay off 1,500 people? They've got families, this, that, and the other. What do we do? It was just an awful week. You're having to look and say, well, where are we going to make the cut? Because otherwise... I remember a few weeks before, as COVID was building up, and there was a friend of mine, we were sat around the table with a few of us, and someone said, what happens if everything goes to zero? Now, in our lives, we've never had to really assume if everything goes to zero from an outside event. what do they call it, a black swan moment or something. And we all went, no, it's not going to go to zero. There'll always be some kind of trade. And I remember Prime Minister stood up and said, or Rishi Sunak, one of them said at the time, do not go to rest, do not eat out, stay at home.
Was it Boris Johnson?
Yeah, but they hadn't put in place yet a policy or any kind of what the funding was going to be or the rescue package. It was, so we went suddenly overnight, we were doing 10% of sales. Now at that point we started shutting down the restaurants. The first time in all of our lives in business, for most of us that were traders anyway, I don't know about from an investment point of view, it was zero. And then you're looking going, well, how long's the cash going to last for? So, and that was a very scary, weird moment. But then something else then came out of it. Because also in our lives, we're always used to forecasting. And we get quite good at it. The longer your business has gone on, you're good at doing budgets, you get good at forecasting. And forecasting and budgets are based on previous historical information. So we're used to having historical information to make a decision. And usually those decisions go well. We've got no historical information on how to cope with COVID. So suddenly we're all
something new, something
hole.
new.
Well, it was a black hole, wasn't it? We don't know. Once we got past that initial shutdown and thought, okay, we've secured funding, we're okay now, this, that, and the other, we can see our way through this. Then it became weirdly quite exciting that actually it was like, right, what's the best way we're going to come out of this? And I actually weirdly enjoyed that experience of having something completely different.
So what good came out of it? You were telling me earlier that you had a site in London that you really wanted.
Sites we'd been trying to get for years, couldn't get. Suddenly I had the opportunity to get them at a much lower price than I would have paid, which was great. And they've turned out to be two of the best acquisitions we've done.
That's because you took the risk when nobody else will.
Yes.
That's what an entrepreneur does.
Yes,
he takes risks.
We'd gone shut down in March.
Yeah.
We did it in April when everybody was still trying to figure out what was going on and how the businesses were going to survive. And then when we did a lot of planning during COVID, we did a lot of thinking about how we were going to evolutionize our business. So we started with new designers and everything. So we knew how we wanted to come out of it. But it was quite difficult because when we came back after the third lockdown and when they were finishing furlough, 40% of our workforce disappeared overnight.
Wow. And did they come back after, or you lost them forever?
They'd gone. They'd even gone during COVID. We didn't know. We thought they were in the UK, but they'd already gone back to Europe or whatever.
To the families.
And to be fair,
people are scared. People didn't know what they're going to die. They want to see the family members.
And also they were getting furlough right up to the minute. So I don't blame them. But of course, they weren't going to resign until literally the day we reopened the restaurants. So in the space of that week and a half, 40% didn't come back. It was a nightmare.
So how did you find recruiting more staff? Was that easy?
No, because the same happened to everybody in the restaurant industry. So everybody then started competing for what was left, and then wages went through the roof. So everybody was just offering more and more and more.
Because the hardest thing as a businessman, I find, is finding the right staff.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to find good people at this time.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Even since Brexit, it's been really difficult.
Yeah.
We're getting there, and now we're finally getting there since COVID, where it's starting to settle now. But it's been for our industry as a whole, has been horrific. Because
people like you and I, we're entrepreneurs. We're always thinking, we're always working, we're always on call. We're always thinking about how to better our business, better ourselves.
It's good people.
Yeah.
You know, it can't be our business now without good people.
Yeah. Good teams win matches. If you've got a good team, you'll win the game.
And we've got some great people in the business now. We've grown a lot. We've grown up a lot. You know, and we're in I don't think if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be in such a good position now. I think it actually taught us a lot. It helped us. And I think that's a lot with a lot of businesses. It just teaches you a lot to better yourselves in that period and become stronger.
You become more resilient, haven't you?
Exactly.
Yeah. Marcello, thank you so much for your time. I know you're really busy and you made time out of your busy schedule. It's really appreciated. And if I can ever reciprocate anything, do let me know. But Marcello, I must say, so you're a natural speaker and you're good looking as well. Maybe you should not be in the restaurant business. Maybe you should be in Hollywood or somewhere. But thank you so much for coming today. And I'd like to bring the podcast to a close. And thank you everybody for listening and watching.
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you.